Hi, and welcome to Something to Talk About. Here we are at King's Restaurant in Mooning. Today I'm going to talk to one of my good friends, longtime friend, who's had a pretty interesting life, coming from a large corporation and then kind of downloading and taking some time in her life to do other things. What happens to a person when they're jamming it hard in the corporate life and then they kind of settle down and do things for other people? That's what we're going to talk about today on Something to Talk About. Welcome back. Something to talk about today. I want to introduce to you Meg Tykenko. You might know her as the lady who would visit your office. For how many years were you with Xerox Corporation? 13 years that you might have stumbled around into somebody's office. You must have known everybody in the business world, right?
Yeah, it was great. It was, you know, we have a pretty large market share, and I loved it because I did cover a lot of territory. And then once I became the general manager, I got to even cover a little bit more territories of some of the larger organizations that I didn't really cover. I covered a lot of geographical territories, so going into the larger organizations were fun too.
So you came in contact with some of Guam's biggest players, really, in the business
all the
world,
time.
right? That's what
Yeah.
that was your playground, really.
Oh yeah.
So how did then I remember there was one day we were having lunch, I think, with a bunch of girlfriends, and he was like, "I'm leaving it. I'm just," and I thought, "You're not going to ease your way out of it. You are like, I'm done."
No.
And I thought, well, how cool is that for a chick to be able to say, after all of these years supporting your family and going to this work, and you were one of those girls that was in the grind. You know what I mean?
Big time grind.
And then you stepped off the wheel, and then you now have become like probably a conversation piece at one time. I'm sure when they went, how do you go from that? And then and you're not. That's not even to say that this is what you were doing at the time. You just decided, I'm just going to go. You left, right? You left to the mainland to be with your family for the whole summer.
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back. I want to say it started in 2009, and it was a real tough year. The economy was terrible on Guam, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a really tough time even at Xerox, and a lot of the federal contracts weren't coming in, and a couple of the big contracts that were supposed to hit that year weren't coming in, so our numbers were down, et cetera, et cetera. And and in the end of September, my dad passed away. And so again, losing your parent is really tough, and I got to go back and be with him for a couple weeks before he died, and then I went back for the funeral. But my boss actually called me. I mean, it's a little out of context because it was a stressful year, but he said, you were gone for 5 weeks. I mean, 3 and 2, but at the same time, and he said, in that time you only, called me, I didn't talk to you for 5 weeks. And I'm like, oh, like, I don't need this too. And then, he kind of apologized, it wasn't hard. Anyways, but 2009 was really tough. And he basically was thinking, maybe you're not the right person for this job. And I was like, excuse me? And that just kind of like, of course, I'm a fighter, so the first thing I was, oh, yeah, right. So anyway, so 2010 came along, and in 2010, everything that didn't hit in the fourth quarter for 2009 all came in at 2010, which I knew it was going to. We didn't lose any business, it just got postponed because of the economy, because of what was going on in the business. And anyway, so then I became the #1 sales manager in the nation, and I held it all the way to the end of the year.
Wow.
And so I won all sorts of contests, and we got he got a new boss, and she was a woman, and so she saw my numbers going off the chart all the time, and so I became her golden girl per se, and he just kind of like rode it. But then in about April I found out I got breast cancer. Anyway, so I found out I was detected with breast cancer in 2010. So by the end of the year I ended up having a mastectomy. And while laying in bed, I was gone for about 6 weeks, and it was the first time in like probably 10 years that I really got to totally disconnect. I mean, no, I mean, stay away from phone, computer, all that kind of stuff, work-wise, whatever, totally disconnected. And I remember just laying in bed, kind of in recovery, or just laying in the hotel room in LA, kind of thinking, what would I do if money wasn't an issue? And one of my pet projects has always been junior achievement. I just love it. I love working with the youth. I love just getting people ready. I like the entrepreneurship, work readiness, the financial literacy, and then I love working with business. And so it's a great place for businesses who sponsor to also then get like their supervisors or people that want to be manager wannabes, but also to teach them some business acumen too. So tying those two together. So it's always kind of like taking JA to the next level. So that was kind of like I started my exit strategy to an extent in the back of my mind then. And then 2011, I lost my brother. And then 2012 was kind of a rough year. In 2013, I went home for a visit. And what happened is my best friend since elementary school, the reason why my breast cancer was like a piece of cake, one, it was early stages, but the other thing is that my best friend was having a double lung transplant the same week I was having my mastectomy.
Oh my gosh.
So it's kind of like, perspective-wise,
Yeah.
I lost a Susu, big deal, I
Yeah.
got another one, blah, blah, blah. So, anyways, and I went home, but I knew she wasn't doing well. I mean, she kind of had a relapse, and she was, she was really susceptible to any kind of disease, not diseases, but like
Airborne anything,
stuff.
yeah.
So, but I saw her, and then I came back, and I was so stressed out at that point, work-wise, that I could feel the stress in my skin. I mean, I don't know if you ever had that stress where you can even feel, and it's just like, I mean,
food at the most delicate moment. I love it. Thanks, babe.
But I just. That's the main thing, is that I was just so stressed. And like I said, I could feel it in my skin, my bones. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't, whatever. And I came back, and that trip, same thing, was all of a sudden I was getting all sorts of emails, and my boss would call me, and I was just like, give me a break. Let me be on vacation. And I went back, and I got back that Friday, that Monday, which was Honolulu Sunday. So I waited till Tuesday morning, went in the office, and gave him I gave him a 90-day resignation. Maybe 60 or 90-day resignation, and just basically said, I got to focus on my health at this point. And he was like, right away, he called on the phone and like, Mary, are you okay? And something happening, and thinking maybe another cancer or whatever. And I just said, no, it's just time for me to go, time for me to whatever. And it was a combination of also is, I always like to grow. That's one of my biggest values is growth. Mm-hmm. And so I really wasn't growing any longer. It was just kind of became a grind. And, some of that's your own problem, not getting out of it, but that was it. So basically 60 some days later, 90 days later, I left Xerox, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I was the breadwinner of the family, the main breadwinner, I should say, of the family. And but Cliff was like, whatever you want to do, babe. He supported me. And so I left and didn't know what I was going to do, and I basically took about an easy 3 months just to decompress. And then I decided I was just feeling really lonely, feeling whatever, and I called my mom and I said, I'm going to come home this summer. I'm going to pretend I'm a teacher and have the summer off and go home and spend that. Or we're going to travel, do that kind of stuff. And well, March 30th or so, I got my phone call from my mom, from the family, and my mom passed away. She had been at the symphony the night before, and she got, she went home, and she was supposed to go to church the next morning, and her friend, she wasn't answering her door, that kind of thing. And so she passed away, and that just was like, totally, yeah, so that was, losing both parents. I mean, and again, it was a 4-year period, but in 4 years, so my girlfriend, that's the other thing, is that I posted something on Facebook and said, I've left Xerox, whatever, I'm leaving, and she said, finally. And she turns around and she said, finally, and then like 3 weeks later, she passed away. So, I had like 4 people that are really,
close
3 family members, my best friend, and then breast cancer, like all in within 4 years. So it was a matter of, it's kind of like, I tell the story, it's kind of like that story about God sending, a boat and then a helicopter and then whatever to save the guy, where he's just, waiting for God to save him, whatever. And that's how I kind of felt. And so I just decided, so then it was like, what am I going to do next? So I just played for a lot. I have one of the things I always wanted to do was take a pottery class. So I took a pottery class at UOG because once you're 55, you can take free classes.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I took some art classes, started doing a lot of creative stuff, just artwork and that kind of thing. I had a lot of my peers used to always ask me if I would do some training, mainly sales training, some leadership training. And so I started doing some training on the side. Not 100% sure what I was going to do, and I just kind of took my old business license out of the archives and redid it and just started doing a few things on the side. And then I started also, because I still went home for my mom's funeral, and I spent 3.5 months at home, and I realized how disconnected I was from my brothers and sisters too. Just because, Facebook and stuff like that is great, and phone calls now and then, but actually spending time and making new memories with them. So I spent the summer home, and it was probably one of the best things I did, just reconnecting with my brothers and sisters, and a bunch of old high school friends too.
Wow.
And then after that, like I said, I didn't know what I was going to do, so I spent the last 3 years going home for like 2 to 3 months, doing a lot of traveling, a lot of road trips, and just having fun.
So I got to ask you, maybe we should probably wait for after we take a break, but I do want you to ponder this question so that when we come back you can kind of put it in perspective. Was this like was at any point, I don't know if it was during the decompression period or if there's any timeline here, when you realized that you were sort of organically purging your life, or maybe you were reincarnating, or you were remaking, or something like that? Was it like this big ta-da moment where you go, holy mackerel, I've stepped off the wheel and now I am becoming? And at what point was that person the real Meg and you had just been going with the flow all the time? Or was this person that you were becoming the new remake?
Okay.
Okay. All right. So that's what we're going to do. I know we're going to a break a little bit early, but I wanted to start answering the question, and then we have to take a break. We're here with Meg. She's a coach, as you can tell. I know you don't like to say life coach, but a lot of these experiences, it does have something to do with life, and it's a teachable lesson for a lot of people.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk a little bit more about all of that. We're at King's in Mooning. This is something to talk about. Welcome back to Something to Talk About, my friend Meg. It's the coolest thing when you're interviewing people. When you're friends with somebody, I think when you're friends with somebody, you know a lot about what they all talk about when there's 5 women
Girls
talking.
Yeah.
We had somebody. We have some like great ideas that have come out of the day, but to have the one-on-one is something really special.
It is.
So I saw you for the Chamber Business Network forum or conference that they had, and I said, I've seen her pop up all the time. I've seen you being invited as a guest speaker. I'm like, what does Meg Tykenko have to say that I don't already know? And so that begs the question, are you, when you are speaking and you're talking about all of these things that you do to service people and make their lives more of a success, is that drawn from the old Meg, or is this drawn from, this new person that came out of that grind?
No, I'm going to say, I think what happens is that, one of the things I really talk about a lot is that, we're all born with the essence. We're all that baby, we're all that perfect baby, and we're all cute and wonderful and strong and, trusting and all that kind of stuff. And then events happen in your life, and, you kind of put meanings to those events, and, things just happen. And you kind of start repeating those kind of things over and over again until you get out of it. And I think it's the experiences you go through. So it's like sometimes some of the things that like right now, when I started doing some training, I started doing some sales training, and it was interesting because, I started doing training now, and I saw a lot of people just kind of like looking at me, and I realized how much I knew. And it's not that I didn't think I knew a lot, but at the same time, realizing that, oh gosh, yeah, I have 35 years of doing this, and these guys are just, 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, whatever, and it's very different. Plus, I've worked for great organizations. Between Ford Motor Company and Xerox Corporation, I've had great training and all that kind of stuff. So what happened, though, is that I think, like I said, I kind of call it my D's, but I'll use something else. But, going through a divorce after, I was filed for divorce at 11 months. having cancer. I'm going to
The
call
divorce thing was how long ago?
back in, I was like 26 or something.
Oh, okay, okay.
I got married at 26 and got
Okay, so that was
divorced at,
a
like,
while
20.
ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, way
She's
back.
not divorced.
No. He's my babe.
Okay.
But it's just one of those
Yeah.
things. But the divorce is hard because somebody's basically telling you that, they don't love you anymore, you're not good enough, you're not whatever. And so it's
Yeah.
all that enough stuff, not
Yeah.
being enough, and that worthiness and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of plays on your head. And then what happens is that, when you're in certain careers, depending on where you're at, people will start telling you that, same kind of thing, you're not good enough. And it's your own mind telling you, somebody can praise you about 10 things, and the one thing that they say, this is where you need work, that's where you hone in, and that's all you kind of hear sometimes. So, that happened a little bit with different careers that I've had or whatever. But then I think what happened is, like I said, is you just kind of get that wake up call. So it was, I don't know if it was really, the deaths or, the breast cancer or what it was, but it was just one of those things that it was really as, where am I at? And being a mother,
yeah.
I think being a mother, that's the hard thing, is that, it's work and kids, working kids, and as a mother, we put ourselves last way too often, and and I'm gonna say, and it's not, and I'm generalizing, but men usually, hey babe, I'm going out golfing, hey babe, I'm gonna go out and play ball, I'm gonna, and they don't think anything of it, and you're like, wait, we gotta, what do the kids do, and it's like, let the kids go and do their
That's
thing.
your problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's not
Yeah.
really that they're saying it's your problem, but we're worried
Right.
about it more,
Right.
Whether it's instinctual or whatever, but we're a little bit more worried about it, and it shouldn't be. So, but one of the things that happened is that when I first became GM at Xerox, they sent me to a training, and it was called, I can't remember what it's called, like Leading from Within or Leadership from Within or something like that. And it was, it's a program that really kind of started with, getting, your sense of who you are, your values, your beliefs, your operating principles, your strengths, possibly your weaknesses, what your legacy wants to be, and, purpose, all that kind of stuff, and then how you want to lead your teams going forward, that kind of thing. But it was like one of the best courses I ever went through. And so basically, one of the things I had put on my map, and it was a visual map, so it's kind of like I'm doing vision boards now too, but it was a visual map, and I always just kept it in my drawer. So it's like whenever I felt myself like slipping away or losing that balance, whatever, I kind of pull that out and say, wait a minute, this is what I got to stick to. And it's easier said than done, of course, because sometimes I forgot, it got shuffled under the papers, right? So you don't think of it anymore. And what happened is that, but I remember whenever I go to a really good training, really, something that was more transformational, I used to say, gosh, I want to do that. One of the things I loved about management is I loved finding the diamonds in the rough. I love, we talk about our talent pool on Guam being limited, and it is somewhat limited as far as population, but there's so much talent here. It's unbelievable. But it's a matter of tapping into it and pulling it out of people and letting people step into it. So one of the things I've really gotten into is really what I call standing in your own power, and it's kind of your connection to the present, and I call Mother Nature, whatever, but the earth, and then that higher power, God, or whoever
Whatever
you want to
believe
go,
in, yeah.
universal power, etc. But it's just standing within you, and if you're kind of connected, and you really think about what's in you and the power that you have in yourself, whatever. I have a picture of myself holding, the sun, the morning sun in my hands, and it's kind of like that power in your hand. And when you get centered, I want to call it. It's amazing what you can do, and so it's just a matter of helping other people find that center and doing what that they want to do.
Because it's easy for all of that rejection and abandonment, to really sink. And it's easy. I mean, it's so easy to sink, especially with that many people who have lost their lives that surrounded you in a support system. And when that happens, how do you convince somebody that really that has a meaning to it and you can draw from that?
Well, what the biggest thing, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get into this, because I know a lot of people who've lost their parents, and I see things on Facebook, and it's been 5 years, 3 years, and they're still mourning. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone mourns differently. But my feeling is, the way my parents raised us was to celebrate life and celebrate somebody's life. So whether it's short or long, I mean, both my parents were in their 80s when they passed away, so they both had really good deaths, pretty healthy deaths, if you want to call it that.
Right.
And so it's one of those things that I just find the blessing in the lessons. So even within the career, with my girlfriend passing away, all that kind of stuff, it's like it's a matter of the lower you go, like a springboard. I used to be a diver, but you know, the whole thing is getting that big jump so you get a bigger bounce up. And so it's a matter of, you know, as low as you go, you're going to get that return. And it's a matter of getting the return versus just falling off the end of the board. So it's, you know, each time it's a lesson learned. And I think, so it kind of goes back to challenges. And I call them, you know, and again, they're challenges. They're going to come into your life constantly, left and right. But it's just a matter of how you maneuver out of it. And there's always these little triggers that will hit you. But it's a matter of once you get past, you know, if you kind of sit back, remove yourself out of it, and then kind of think, you know, what have I learned? You know, what has this person brought to my life? What I've learned, and you just start, you know, finding things a little bit more. It's kind of like that whole gratitude. I mean, one of the things I got a couple years ago was a gratitude journal. It's called the 5-Minute Journal. These two guys put it together, but it's great. So I do a daily gratitude journal, and just like 3 things you're grateful for, what's going to make the good day good. And then in the evening, you just say, you know, what went well today and what could have I done better? And that's it. And the app, it's kind of cool because you can put a photo. So it's kind of like Facebook. It's just kind of like, you know, remember.
Are you sharing with everybody else, or is that just
it's just yourself? It's just yourself. But I notice when I travel, you know, one of the things you see me on Facebook, but when I travel back to the States, I do a photo journal of my whole trip. And I put down what I've done every day. So like last night, actually did this morning, I've just kind of started that again because I was like, one of the things I love about traveling is I love reconnecting with people or connecting with people. I love discovery, so I love to travel. I love the freedom of the road. I wish I could do it on the back of a bike versus a car.
Don't you like being a little bit scared?
Yeah, it's excitement.
Yeah.
I mean, fear, I really not very afraid of anything. There's so many things I want to do. If anything, it's more embarrassment for myself, and again, it's my own self-insecurities kind of thing, but it's not about, like, I want to jump out of a plane so bad. But it's like, oh man, I'm too heavy to do that right now. It's like, well, that sucks, you know, and it's like, you know, so lose some weight. Okay, that's on the checklist. That's on the to-do list. So,
well, you know, a lot of, so much of this is also attitude. You said, be careful what you ask me, because I may just tell you too much information.
Yeah. And total TMI. Yeah.
But you have you always been that way? Have you always been that, even when you were younger? Because a lot of what you're doing has a lot to do with the fact that you're older, you're more experienced, you've had all of these other life lessons. But when you were younger, were you still that person? Was that part of your soul?
Yeah. So if anything, I mean, to an extent, I've always been true to myself. But if anything, lately I've a little bit more open about it. And it's just kind of I want to say I'm getting back to me. I guess I am me, but, you know, I mean, not afraid to be, you know, authentic and unique and, you know, like I said, that whole TMI kind of thing. I don't really care what
people think about.
Not really.
If they judge you or not. And I think you answered the question that I wanted to be answered right before the break. You know, is this a reincarnation? Is this a remake? And it's not. This is just all you.
I want to say it's like finding yourself again, and I don't. And that's why it's kind of like woo woo.
It almost sounds corny to say that. It's just like eat, pray, love, but
but yeah, no, but it is.
But it is. But you have to at some point in your life.
You need some quiet time. You need to. You know, I mean, one of the things I love about Guam is, you know, I love going down to the family beach and just sitting there and looking out at the ocean and just thinking, you know, this is just amazing. I live in paradise. You know, why am I killing myself? Why am I whatever? I didn't come to Guam to, you know, kill myself and to, you know, and stress myself out. I mean, it's so beautiful, and I love Guam. You know, as far as the culture on Guam, the people on Guam, as far as it's so forgiving, it's so open, it's very family oriented. It's been the best place to raise a family. So, you know, I mean, I found my babe here. You know,
I just love the woman you are. I tell you, Meg, thanks a lot.
Thanks, hon.
I know that this is not what you expected.
Not at all.
This is what I love her. It's like, Meg, you want to be a guest? She's like, I'm afraid to say yes, but yeah, okay. But I appreciate it. Thank you, sis.
No, it's been fun.
That is something to talk about. We'll see you on the radio. Thanks for joining us.